This is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu.
Sonesta Suites in Charleston, an extended stay hotel located near the airport, downtown, and the state capitol. More at sonesta.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.
Welcome to the Legislature Today. I'm Curtis Tate. The House of Delegates reviewed several bills for their final reading today on topics like voter registration and reading education. Jack Walker brings us the rundown.
State law currently allows newborns to be safely surrendered at healthcare centers or fire halls. Senate Bill 8 would expand the number of sites to include EMS sites and police departments. The bill passed unanimously and now heads to the Senate. House Bill 2143 would require teachers at public elementary schools in West Virginia to get certified in the science of reading, a form of reading instruction that focuses on the phonetic pronunciation of words. The bill standardizes curricular training after another popular method of reading called cueing was debunked. Instead of letting students sound out words, that method focused on reading by using context clues, like the previous words in a sentence. The requirement is intended to strengthen the Third Grade Success Act that passed in 2023, with the intent to ensure students are on grade level in reading and math by the end of the third grade. House Bill 2143 would require teachers to obtain a certification in the curriculum. It passed with 81 votes in favor and 13 members opposed. Meanwhile, most of Monday's floor discussion surrounded bills that would impact elections and voting in West Virginia. Senate Bill 487 would shorten the turnaround for when the review and purging of voter rolls can occur. County clerks currently must mail voters residence confirmation requests when they do things like change their address or register a vote in another county, then remove those who don't respond every 4 years. The bill would shorten that turnaround time to just 2 years. On the House floor, Delegate Mike Pushkin, a Democrat from Kanawha County, said he was confused by the terms of the bill, and that he worries voters will find the new purging timeline confusing too.
It's not super clear why we're doing this and why it wouldn't just simply match up with federal law. However, I do see this causing some confusion among the voters, especially low propensity voters who tend to only vote every 4 years. And I get it, that what it's trying to do, but I think it's also going to lead to people showing up to vote and realizing that they are no longer registered.
Delegate J.B. Akers, a Republican from Kanawha County, argued that the process requires advance notice, gives voters ample time to respond, and is permissible under federal law.
If there are folks who are going to show up not knowing that they're no longer registered to vote, there is a requirement by law that they have been provided with some sort of notice prior to the then 4-year window under federal law.
The bill passed 84-9, with 7 members absent and not voting. House Bill 2702 would amend vacancy protocol for elected positions in the state and follows a partisan dispute over which major party had the authority to fill a vacant House seat in January. That came after Joseph DeSoto, who won the seat as a Republican, switched to the Democratic Party just before the seat he won was vacated by a majority of the House of Delegates. The bill would create a 1-year district residency requirement for a candidate to represent a district, and establish that the parties lawmakers are elected under get to name their successors if they're removed from office. That reverts a 2018 law passed by a Republican majority, giving parties upon removal say over naming a replacement. Pushkin expressed frustration over what he views as inconsistency over the policy from Republican lawmakers.
I think it overturns a law that never should have been on the books in the first place. It ignored the will of the voters, that particular law, and it created more problems than it ever solved, and it created a problem that we're dealing with right now.
The state's Democratic Party is currently involved in a lawsuit over the disputed House seat, awarded in January to a Republican delegate, Ian Masters of Berkeley County. Pushkin alleged the timing of the bill was informed by the ongoing lawsuit.
This bill does have an effect on a pending lawsuit that the Democratic Party is involved in over, the Republican lawmakers up here and the governor ignoring the law that has been on the books since 2018.
Also under House Bill 2702, the governor can appoint interim constitutional officers until vacancy proceedings are complete, ensuring essential government roles stay filled. Despite his concern over how the bill advanced through the House, Pushkin didn't push back on the text of the bill. Neither did other lawmakers. House Bill 2702 passed unanimously and now heads to the Senate for further consideration. For the Legislature Today, I'm Jack Walker on the House floor.
The announcement of the NCAA men's basketball tournament bracket Sunday has sparked considerable political angst in the state today due to the exclusion of the West Virginia University Mountaineers. Governor Patrick Morrisey was joined by Attorney General J.B. McCuskey to announce a lawsuit against the college athletics governing body. Senator Mike Stewart, a Republican from Kanawha County, took the floor at the end of today's session to express his disappointment and state the case for the body's attention to the issue.
Some would say, is this worthy of remarks? But this is worthy of remarks. Let me point out real quick that college athletics matter because they promote school spirit, offer educational career benefits to student athletes, and can contribute to a university's reputation and financial stability. After each one of those historic bowl games the Mountaineers played in, it was serious money that flowed into the university and serious upticks in attendance.
The WVU women's basketball team was included in their NCAA tournament as a 6th seed. Rules committees don't meet very often, and bills assigned to them are often considered shelved for the session. As Chris Schultz reports, 2 bills nearing completion in the Senate were sent to the Rules Committee.
Senate Bill 526 was on third reading Monday, but was sent to the Senate Rules Committee. The bill, which would authorize pharmacists to prescribe low-risk medications to patients, sparked heated discussion on the Senate floor Friday over safety, legislative overreach, and access to medical care. The Senate took action on 3 bills relating to schools and student safety. Senate Bill 449 would clarify code to allow for the transportation and storage of compressed air and rimfire rifles for the use of shooting teams in public schools. It was passed with no discussion and now heads to the House of Delegates for consideration. Senate Bill 220 would require annual, age-appropriate instruction in child sexual abuse prevention, as well as in-service training for school staff. The bill was on second reading Monday, but was also sent to the Senate Rules Committee. Senator Mike Woelfel, a Democrat from Cabell County and the bill's sponsor, formally objected to the action. He expressed frustration that such an action would be taken as the Capitol was observing West Virginia Coalition Against Domestic Violence Day.
I understand there's some religious concerns expressed by folks in the body that I've heard, that the word sex triggers them. Sex abuse. This is not a sex education bill. This is a bill to educate children. If they're victims of sexual abuse, we may be able to ferret that out and interrupt the abuse and save them.
However, Senate Education Chair Amy Grady, a Republican from Mason County, said the reason for the reference were concerns raised by the West Virginia Department of Education about overburdening teachers with training requirements and not religious objection.
And many of this training has already taken place, and we want to make sure that we're not duplicating something. We want to make sure that we're looking at that language and we can clarify it. If it needs to come out of rules and we need to run the bill a little bit differently because of that, then that would be the purpose, and that's the only sole reason for it being sent to rules, Mr. President.
Woelfel was unconvinced and requested Grady provide the existing policy. Senate Bill 548 would require the creation and implementation of student safety and violence prevention training, as well as student training on combating social isolation. Grady, the bill's sponsor, presented an amendment to remove mentions of social inclusion in favor of the phrase social isolation. Senator Joey Garcia, a Democrat from Marion County, questioned the need for the change, and Grady conceded the phrases seemed synonymous to her. Garcia proposed his own theory for the change.
And we've been discussing this idea of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I guess that inclusion is just a scary word for some people. I don't get it because I think, to me, I always try to make something clear, try to use less words, I think be less verbose. And this kind of goes the other direction right there, but I think I understand. I think there's just an aversion to any bill using the word inclusion, and I think that's kind of sad. So for that reason, I'd oppose the amendment.
The amendment was adopted, and Senate Bill 548 will be on third reading Tuesday. For the Legislature Today, I'm Chris Schultz.
Monday was Environment Day at the Capitol. Groups held a public hearing outside the House chamber in opposition to Senate Bill 592. The bill would relax safeguards for above-ground storage tanks. A leak from one such tank in 2014 contaminated the drinking water supply for 300,000 residents in the Charleston area. Here's Morgan King of the West Virginia Citizen Action Group.
I have a jar of water here from the 2014 water crisis. This water contains MCHM, which is a chemical used to clean coal. This chemical leaked into the Elk River in 2014. I was in high school at the time, living here in Charleston, and it contaminated the water over 3,000 people. It contaminated the water of over 300,000 people across the metro area. Students were out of school, people were not able to take showers, drink the water, or use the water. And as a result of this crisis, our legislature acted quickly and passed the Above Ground Storage Tank Act to regulate tanks such as the one that leaked MCHM into our water to ensure that a water crisis like in 2014 does not ever happen again. Yet year after year, our legislature has tried to chip away at this bill, and they're trying to do it again with Senate Bill 592. Unfortunately, there are no longer any public hearings in the House of Delegates right here behind us, so we have to have our own.
Unlike past sessions, public hearings are no longer held in the House chamber with lawmakers present. The Senate passed SB 592 on Friday, 25-7, and it moved to the House Energy and Public Works Committee. Earlier today, I spoke with Emmett Pepper of Energy Efficient West Virginia and Lucia Valentine of the West Virginia Environmental Council about legislation they're following, including Senate Bill 592 and others. Hey, Emmett. Hey, Lucia. Happy Environmental Day at the Capitol.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Emmett, let's start with you. We had been discussing Senate Bill 505. Can you tell me a little bit more about that bill and what happened with it last week in committee?
Yeah, well, the committee approved it, and I guess cut off discussion about it before doing so, and then I guess there was a celebration afterwards with red hats and hard hats and all kinds of stuff.
Who was celebrating?
What's that? Oh, the Coal Association. What the bill does is, I think it's called the Reliable and Affordable Electricity Act. Unfortunately, it does neither. It does nothing to address our reliability issues, which are significant and some of the worst in the country here in West Virginia. And it actually would do the opposite. It would make electric bills less affordable.
Well, and in fact, that's what Appalachian Power told me when I asked them about it. But who else raised a concern about it? Somebody you and I both know.
Yeah, I saw that the Chairman Lane of the Public
Charlotte
Service
Lane,
Commission, she was on and talked about her perspectives on it, and didn't seem to think it was necessary.
Well, and she said that if anything, it would just increase an administrative burden on commission staff, and otherwise wouldn't give them any power to do anything that they can't already do.
Yeah, and my concern is what it does is it requires power plants that can operate at will, essentially, during peak demand times. It requires them to basically never retire. So if there was some determination that, gosh, this power plant is really expensive, not best for ratepayers, it would save ratepayers money, help people lower their bills to have it close, this law would say that it can't close. And so that's my concern. Is this is going to be, one more way that we, as ratepayers, regular West Virginians paying their electric bills, are subsidizing a very few industries in the state, and our bills just keep going up.
Well, and it also would seem to disadvantage renewables, wind and solar, and many companies coming to West Virginia actually want to have that option, don't they?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it would basically make it very difficult for wind and solar to be part of the mix as well.
Yeah, that's another thing that Appalachian Power raised with me. In addition to potential rate impacts, they also said that this could hurt business opportunities in the state. Lucia, there's another bill that we're interested in having to do with above ground storage tanks. Now there was the spill into the Elk River in 2014, and it seems like every year since then they've been trying to maybe walk back what they did at that point. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So Senate Bill 592, the Above Ground Storage Tank Act, passed the Senate last week and is now in the House. And this bill, like you said, initially passed as a result of the 2014 chemical spill. And since then, there's been many attempts to roll back regulations. And now the only tanks left that are regulated are tanks in ZCCs, or zones of critical concern, which means that these are now coal, oil and gas, and now coal tanks, thanks to the committee substitute, that are located closest to our drinking water sources. So these tanks are located travel time about 5 hours upstream. So if we were to have another spill, they could quickly contaminate our drinking water source again.
I think I heard that the chairman of the Senate Energy Industry and Mining Committee said something to the effect that coal and gas didn't cause that spill in 2014. They weren't involved, so let's give them a break or something like that. What's your response to that?
I think that this doesn't place any new burdens on the oil and gas and coal industry. These are regulations that we see in place that have been working. We know that 38% of all confirmed leaks reported to the DEP do come from these tanks in the zones of critical concern. So it does show that these tanks are leaking, and we need the inspection process in place that has been working to detect those leaks and make sure that they're cleaned up in time so that we can prevent another spill from happening.
Let me kind of switch gears a little bit and ask you both. What bills have been introduced here that you'd like to see moved, that aren't a cause of concern for you, but ones you actually support?
That's a good question.
Well, I'll just start. I mean, so there's one bill I know that, so one of my main areas of focus is to let people have more power to take control of their own energy bills and do more in that way. So there is a bill that would allow for more flexibility about if you have solar installed, that you have more flexibility of like where that is. If you want to work with your neighbors to have, if you have like different solar panels nearby, you can work that out. And so this would just allow more flexibility for people to work with their neighbors to meet their own energy needs.
Are you talking about community solar?
It's more of like a virtual net metering bill.
I see.
But yeah, it has some similarities to the community solar bills.
Lucia, any thoughts about that?
There's a community air monitoring bill that's been introduced in the House that would help to protect community air monitoring programs, which now help fill in the gap between state agencies and community air monitoring programs to help citizens detect air monitoring in real time in their communities. And so we would like to see those programs protected, and there's a bill to do that.
Well, I think last year the Manufacturers Association opposed. I don't think that they opposed people having individual air monitors, but they just said, oh, well, it shouldn't be used to make any policy. Is that about right?
Correct. And to that point, it already can't be used for regulatory purposes under the Clean Air Act and under DEP. Any data collected by community air monitors cannot be used for regulatory purposes, and so that's already law, and we think that we should leave that up to the experts and the agencies to decide what data should be used. But DEP currently would have to verify and vet any data that's coming from a community air monitor.
Emmett, any thoughts about that?
I mean, as a lawyer, I just think about, these are the sorts of things that can be worked out in the courtroom, how much weight to give to certain evidence and all that. I mean, so I don't understand why that needs to be written into law.
Are there any other bills, Emmett, that concern you?
No. I mean, yeah, there's plenty. I mean, it seems like there's every year I just see these bills from people who say they're conservative, but what they're doing is using the power of government, or trying to use the power of government, to force us to pay for power plants and for energy choices that are more expensive, because they're connected to politically powerful entities. So we see the bill we already talked about to require, to make it so that power plants can't retire even if they're not cost effective. We see other things where they say that like we're going to use the government to like find sites for different power plants to be going online. It's like, where does this end?
Well, they're going to discuss that this afternoon, I think, in Senate Energy. It would also, I think, I read that it would encourage the development of coke production for steel making, and then steel production.
Yeah, and then you have to find. They're tasking the government with doing site identification for steel, or for coke production for steel, and also for electric generation. It's like, doesn't private industry have their own aspects that they can do that? Why do we need the government involved with these things?
I just thought about this too. We're kind of ping-ponging back and forth between issues, which is good. There's a lot to talk about. But Lucia, I learned from the Environmental Council last week that there's going to be a rally here on Thursday protesting electricity rates. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the details of the rally, but I do know that the Environmental Council believes that we need to be protecting West Virginia ratepayers and making sure that we're, lowering their costs, not hiring them. There's so many people that cannot afford their electricity costs right now across the state, and that's absolutely unacceptable. And I think some of the bills that Emmett's talked about really highlights the need to look at this creatively and look at what solutions are actually going to work to lower these costs for people.
And Emmett, Energy Efficient West Virginia, are they participating in this event on Thursday?
I think some of we're part of a larger coalition called West Virginians for Energy Freedom, and a lot of those folks are involved in that. I mean, so I think the concept is our rates have doubled here in the southern part of West Virginia, the AEP for AEP customers in the last 15 years, and we've seen there's another proposal at the Public Service Commission to increase rates further and make it harder for people to do something about their electric rates by going solar and other things. So that's where we see it, is people should be empowered to take control of their own energy bills, and we should not be using government to subsidize industries that can't survive on their own.
Well, let's take this in a slightly different direction. Last week in our reporter roundtable, we kind of talked about a couple of different bills that have seen some activity here, and noted the contradiction. On one hand, you've got some attempts to deregulate, and on the other hand, you've got some attempts to regulate. I think like the bill that we were talking about, 505, seems to, you're directing the Public Service Commission to direct utilities to do a certain thing, and then with say the above ground storage tanks, you're talking about sort of a deregulation. Is there something of a contradiction going on here at the state level, and maybe even the federal level too?
I don't see a contradiction. They just give whatever the big companies want. That's what they're doing. The consistency between those two is that they're pushing for things that the large industries want them to do. So I'm sorry to be so crass about it, but I mean that's what it seems to be.
Well, in the remaining minute or so we have here, Lucia, what's the best case outcome for you when the session comes to a close here in a few weeks?
Yeah, I think that protecting our drinking water is definitely a big concern for us. We saw the passage out of the House Bill 2233, which removes drinking water protections for some rivers and streams in West Virginia. The Above Ground Storage Tank Act has passed the Senate, now on its way to the House. And I think that as we're looking at issues that our state is facing, we have so many folks who go without access to clean drinking water, and so we should not be making it easier for industries to be able to pollute our waterways in the face of that crisis that so many parts of our state are facing right now due to flooding and failing services and things like that. So we really need to make sure that we're ensuring access to clean drinking water, and I think helping to defeat those bills would be a step in the right direction for those communities.
Emmett, any closing thoughts?
I just think I hope that cooler heads prevail. I think there's a lot of bills that get introduced, and my hope is that the adults in the room will realize that some of these are some pretty bad ideas.
All right. Well, thanks to you both. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks
for having me.
That was Lucia, Valentine, and Emmett Pepper speaking with me about environmental and energy issues before the state legislature. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Catch the Legislature Today Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. And remember, West Virginia Public Broadcasting covers the session daily in our radio news program, West Virginia Morning, and on our news site, wvpublic.org. We also broadcast the daily floor sessions of both the House and the Senate on the West Virginia channel. I'm Curtis Tate. Good evening, and see you here again tomorrow.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu.
Sonesta Suites in Charleston, an extended stay hotel located near the airport, downtown, and the state capitol. More at sonesta.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.